Now everything's fine. Okay, so I think if everybody is ready, we can get started. And Rajita ji and Padmini ji are ready, right?
Yes.
Yes, KKG.
Okay. Welcome everybody to today's this session of Bhagavad Gita online Parayan and Satsang, which we are holding. This is a 16th session for this year, and we've been holding these online sessions for the past 2 years because of the COVID, and we could not have physical sessions. So we are continuing with this year also. Next year we will see what we have to do. So now we are moving towards the final 2-3 sessions for for this year because we are actually completing the whole of the Bhagavad Gita in 18 sessions. Like there are 18 chapters. Even though we don't actually have every session for one chapter because some chapters are very long and some chapters are very short, and we really cannot have we need to have some kind of uniformity and equal amount of time for each session. And so we typically take about 40 verses per session, but today we'll have a little less. So Rajshekharji's talk will be, hopefully we should get started earlier. And today's we are doing chapter 17 and a little bit of chapter 18. So that is the plan for today. And today our guest of honor for today is Professor Rajesh Rai, who is the president of Arya Samaj and also a long-time associate of Gita Jayanti for many years. And Rajesh Rai, as well as his father, were the leads when Arya Samaj was the lead organization a few years ago. And today we have Rajshekharji as the speaker for today, and he'll be speaking on chapter 17 after the chanting is completed. So that'll be another highlight of today's session. So without much ado, let's get started. And this event is being live streamed over the Gita Jayanti's Facebook page as well as YouTube channel. So now we get started with the initial commencement, and after this, we will go to the welcome address. So over to Sri Hariji for the commencement.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunattu Sahaviyam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shuklam Baradharam Vishnu Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadhanam Dhyayet Sarva Vighnopashantaye. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanye Triambake Gauri Narayani Namostute. Vasudeva Sutan Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishna Vande Jagadgurum. Krishna Vande Jagadgurum.
Thank you, so much to Srihari for that beautiful rendering of the initial mantras. Now over to the welcome address. Today's, as I said earlier, today's welcome address, our guest of honor for today is Professor Rajesh Rai ji, who is the president of Arya Samaj and a long-term associate of Gita Jayanti celebrations over the years. So now we welcome Professor Rajesh Rai ji for his initial welcome address. Over to Rajesh Rai ji.
Jai Shri Krishna. Thank you for inviting me here now. Second year, I understand from Satsang that last year I had my session at a similar time. So it seems that end of October is set aside for the Arya Samaj, and we are humbled by that. I will begin my welcome address, a short introduction to the Arya Samaj here. The Arya Samaj, of course, our focus is been on conducting havans and, of course, Vedic mantras. And we continue to have offered this, in fact, for close to 100 years now. So my organization is coming to 100 years. In addition to that, we have yoga sessions. These days, it's also online. And I hope you will get a chance to avail to this. Arya Samaj is committed really to serving the local Hindu community, and you will find that a number of events of different Hindu groups are conducted there. And I hope that one day you will take some time to come to the Samaj. Now, coming back to my welcome address, when Srinivasanji invited me, I said, please don't invite me as guest of honor. I have done nothing that deserves that honor. And really, I'm sure that everybody in this audience, your consciousness is far more evolved than mine. But he insisted that I should, and so I'm here. Last year I spoke about chess and instinct as it pertained to chapter, I think, 16 of the Bhagavad Gita. And today, I think we are in 17 and 18, where I think some of the most important messages of the Gita are contained within it. One, of course, is the determinants of the outcome of action, and which is very important. But also, I think Lord Krishna goes into detail of what is sattvic and rajasic and tamasic in our lives. And as I looked at that again before this session, and this year I'm proud to say I read the Bhagavad Gita once, and this is the second time. So I'm very happy. At least Srinivasanji, your invites have got me reading the Bhagavad Gita again. So when I read those chapters again, I looked at what is sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic, and so many elements, of course, but directly to our everyday life. The one element I really wanted to emphasize upon as we look at it is how to be sattvic in our diet. And I think this is a matter as I grow older, it becomes more important, but I also think that it's something that we need to think of collectively, because it has become incredibly difficult in our modern life and in living in this city for our diet not to be tamasic. In fact, so much of it is tamasic. As children, we are introduced to packets of food, chips, I don't know, things that are very attractive to children, understandably so. But do we realize sometimes that that food is putrid, that food is stale, that food is probably 2 or 3 years old, something even animals will not eat. But it is so much part of our lives today. And I worry about the consequences of this, and how we can try and turn away from it. And it baffles me because of course, the population when the Gita was being said was a smaller population, also I believe. Today we have 8.4 billion people who are dependent on these packed foods, all of which I'm certain is tamasic incorrect. And I wonder how we can come together individually for ourselves as a society to try certain diseases new emerge, immune diseases are rife, allergies are rife, things that were uncommon in the past have become far more common. And I hope that perhaps at the end of this session, you will spend some time to think about your own diet, your family's diet, and how we can change it in the circumstances that we lead. So with that, I welcome you all, and I thank you for this, allowing me to share my organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Rajesh Rai, and for those nice words. And very interestingly, you talked about the real life application of this chapter for our life, especially for the food. And we will definitely talk about it at the end of the talk, Rajshekhar. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions on it. And very interestingly, I remember in 1980, in the initial part, I think when Amriteshwari Society was the lead organization, we had one of the meetings in which the Foreign Secretary of India, Government of India, was the guest of honor at BJP Hall here, and he talked about Anudvegakaram Vakyam, how his diplomatic life was influenced by Bhagavad Gita, and the words that he used were Anudvegakaram Vakyam. Whenever you speak, your words should be not to cause some kind of some anxiety or some anger or things for others. So the way the chapter 13 talks a lot about how we should actually behave in the real life, in the real world. So thank you so much again for highlighting this point, and we will talk more about this at the after the talk, after the whole session. So thank you once again. And unfortunately, I think we had a lot of some difficulties with your bandwidth was not so good. So some parts of the sound was not completely audible. But anyway, this is part of Zoom issues. That's okay. So we will get back to.
Yeah, just want to share two things with thing. We not only Arya Samaj, I think Arya Samaj also came to probably, shall I say, our rescue when PGP was under renovation and they were leading the Gita Jayanti at that year. So we had a lot of our activities in the Arya Samaj, art competitions, IGF, and even our monthly meetings and everything. So we fondly recall those days and we hope to reconnect again, establishing our ties again. And talking of one, sorry, I'm taking one more thing. Many of, since you mentioned the foreign secretary, there was a chief election commissioner, N. Gopalaswamy Iyengar. So he used to be a very staunch vegetarian. He was so much that wherever he goes for the meetings, he will carry his own food and eat, even many of them abroad. He stayed with my brother in Hong Kong and he said, no, I'll take some home food for the meeting, and my brother gave it to him. So it's possible. He didn't bother about what others might think. We were staunch to think. So if everybody of us have conviction, we can change the world.
Yeah. Now, what I said about the Rasgotra was actually what he spoke in Gita Jayanti itself. He was speaking in the Gita Jayanti's meeting. I mean, he was not. I'm not talking about some other outside events. He spoke the exactly same words at the PGP hall here. So I was just recollecting the talk that he gave that day. Anyway, thanks a lot, Srinivasi also. And now let's get back to our Dhyanam and the chantings. So initially we will have the Dhyanam, Gita Dhyanam, the invocation to the Bhagavad Gita itself, followed by the actual chantings portions for today. And chanting, the Dhyanam will be done by Sindhuji. So over to Sindhuji, please.
Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीमष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरो हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितं लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुल्लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
So much, Sidhuji, for that beautiful chanting of Gita Dhyanam. So now we come to the actual Parayan session for today. So today we will be doing chapter 17, all the from the verses 11 to 28, and after that we will do chapter 18, first 14 verses. So altogether 32 verses only today. And please take note of the meanings of each of the verse which is given in the slides which are coming to follow in the following slides, and the commentators from whom these meanings are taken is given in brackets in abbreviated form, and the expanded form, the actual name of the commentators will be given at the end of the all the verses. So now we will get to the actual chanting. So over to Gita as well as Patni.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Abhalakankshibhiryajñah.
अफलाकाङ्क्षिभिर्यज्ञः
Vidhidrashto ya ijyate.
विधिदृष्टो य युज्यते
यष्टव्यमेवेति मनः
यष्टव्यमेवेति मनः
समाधाय स सात्विकः
समाधाय स सात्विकः
अभलाकाङ्क्षिभिर्यज्ञः विधिदृष्टो य इज्यते यष्टव्यमेवेति मनः समाधाय स सात्विकः
अफलाकाङ्क्षिभिर्यज्ञः विधिदृष्टो य युज्यते यष्टव्यमेवेति मनः समाधाय स सात्विकः
अभिसन्धाय तु फलम्
अभिसन्धाय तु फलम्
दम्भार्थमपि चैव यत्
दम्भार्थमपि चैव यत्
इज्यते भरतश्रेष्ठ
युज्यते भरतश्रेष्ठ
तञ्यज्ञौ विद्धि राजसम्
तञ्यज्ञं विद्धि राजसम्
अभिसन्धाय तु फलम् दम्भार्थमपि चैव यत् इज्यते भरतश्रेष्ठ तञ्यज्ञौ विद्धि राजसम्
अभिसन्धाय तु फलम् दम्भार्थमपि चैव यत् युज्यते भरतश्रेष्ठ तञ्यज्ञं विद्धि राजसम्
विधिहीनमसृष्टान्नम्
विधिहीनमसृष्टान्नम्
मन्त्रहीनमदक्षिणम्
मन्त्रहीनमदक्षिणम्
श्रद्धाविरहितं यज्ञम्
श्रद्धाविरहितं यज्ञम्
तामसं परिचक्षते
तामसं परिचक्षते
विधिहीनमसृष्टान्नम् मन्त्रहीनमदक्षिणम् श्रद्धाविरहितं यज्ञम् तामसं परिचक्षते
विधिहीनमसृष्टान्नम् मन्त्रहीनमदक्षिणम् श्रद्धाविरहितं यज्ञम् तामसं परिचक्षते
देवद्विजगुरुप्राज्ञपूजनं शौचमार्जवम्
देवद्विजगुरुप्राज्ञपूजनं शौचमार्जवम्
ब्रह्मचर्यमहिंसा च
ब्रह्मचर्यमहिंसा च
शारीरन्तप उच्यते
शारीरन्तप उच्यते
देवद्विजगुरुप्राज्ञपूजनं शौचमार्जवम् ब्रह्मचर्यमहिंसा च शारीरन्तप उच्यते
देवद्विजगुरुप्राज्ञपूजनं शौचमार्जवम् ब्रह्मचर्यमहिंसा च शारीरं तप उच्यते अनुद्वेगकरं वाक्यम्
अनुद्वेगकरं वाक्यं
सत्यं प्रियहितं च यत्
सत्यं प्रियहितं च यत्
स्वाध्यायाभ्यसनं चैव
स्वाध्यायाभ्यसनं चैव
वाङ्मयं तप उच्यते
वाङ्मयं तप उच्यते
अनुद्वेगकरं वाक्यं सत्यं प्रियहितं च यत् स्वाध्यायाभ्यसनं चैव वाङ्मयं तप उच्यते
अनुद्वेगकरं वाक्यं सत्यं प्रियहितं च यत् स्वाध्यायाभ्यसनं चैव वाङ्मनं तप उच्यते
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वम्
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वं
मौनमात्मविनिग्रहः
मौनमात्मविनिग्रहः
भावसंशुद्धिरित्येतत्
भावसंशुद्धिरित्येतत्
तपोमानसमुच्यते
तपोमानसमुच्यते
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वम् मौनमात्मविनिग्रहः भावसंशुद्धिरित्येतत् तपोमानसमुच्यते
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वं मौनमात्मविनिग्रहः भावसंशुद्धिरित्येतत् तपोमानसमुच्यते
श्रद्धया परया तप्तम्
श्रद्धया परया तप्तम्
तपस्तत्त्रिविधं नरैः
तपस्तत्त्रिविधं नरैः
अफलाकाङ्क्षिभिर्युक्तैः
अफलाकाङ्क्षिभिर्युक्तैः
सात्विकं परिचक्षते
सात्विकं परिचक्षते
श्रद्धया परया तप्तं तपस्तत्त्रिविधं नरैः अफलाकाङ्क्षिभिर्युक्तैः सात्विकं परिचक्षते
श्रद्धया परया तप्तं तपस्तत्त्रिविधं नरैः अफलाकाङ्क्षिभिर्युक्तैः सात्विकं परिचक्षते
सत्कारमानपूजार्थं
सत्कारमानपूजार्थं
तपोदम्भेन चैव यत्
तपोदम्भेन चैव यत्
क्रियते तदिह प्रोक्तम्
क्रियते तदिह प्रोक्तम्
राजसं चलमध्रुवम्
राजसञ्चलमध्रुवम्
सत्कारमानपूजार्थं तपोदम्भेन चैव यत् क्रियते तदिह प्रोक्तम् राजसं चलमध्रुवम्
सत्कारमानपूजार्थं तपोदम्भेन चैव यत् क्रियते तदिह प्रोक्तम् राजसञ्चलमध्रुवम् मूढग्राहेणात्मनो यत्
मूढग्राहीणात्मनो यत्
पीडया क्रियते तपः
पीडया क्रियते तपः
परस्योत्सादनार्थं वा
परस्योत्सादनार्थं वा
तत्तामसमुदाहृतम्
तत्तामसमुदाहृतम्
मूढग्राहेणात्मनो यत् पीडया क्रियते तपः परस्योत्सादनार्थं वा तत्तामसमुदाहृतम्
मूढग्राहीणात्मनो यत् पीडया क्रियते तपः परस्योत्सादनार्थं वा तत्तामसमुदाहृतम्
दातव्यमिति यद्दानं
दातव्यमिति यद्दानं
दीयतेनुपकारिणे
दीयतेनुपकारिणे
देशे काले च पात्रे च
देशे काले च पात्रे च
तद्दानौ सात्विकं स्मृतम्
तद्दानौ सात्विकं स्मृतम्
दातव्यमिति यद्दानं दीयतेनुपकारिणे देशे काले च पात्रे च तद्दानं सात्विकं स्मृतम्
दातव्यमिति यद्दानं दीयतेनुपकारिणे देशे काले च पात्रे च तद्दानं सात्विकं स्मृतम्
यत्तु प्रत्युपकारार्थं
यत्तु प्रत्युपकारार्थं
फलमुद्दिश्य वा पुनः
फलमुद्दिश्य वा पुनः
दीयते च परिक्लिष्टम्
दीयते च परिक्लिष्टम्
तद्दानौ राजसंस्मृतम्
तद्दानं राजसंस्मृतम्
यत्तु प्रत्युपकारार्थं फलमुद्दिश्य वा पुनः दीयते च परिक्लिष्टम् तद्दानौ राजसंस्मृतम्
यत्तु प्रत्युपकारार्थं फलमुद्दिश्य वा पुनः दीयते च परिक्लिष्टं तद्दानं राजसंस्मृतम्
अदेशकाले यद्दानम्
अदेशकाले यद्दानम्
अपात्रेभ्यश्च दीयते
अपात्रेभ्यश्च दीयते
असत्कृतमवज्ञातम्
असत्कृतमवज्ञातम्
तत्तामसमुदाहृतम्
तत्तामसमुदाहृतम्
अदेशकाले यद्दानम् अपात्रेभ्यश्च दीयते असत्कृतमवज्ञातम् तत्तामसमुदाहृतम्
अदेशकाले यद्दानम् अपात्रेभ्यश्च दीयते असत्कृतमवज्ञातम् तत्तामसमुदाहृतम् ॐ तत्सदिति निर्देशः
ॐ तत्सदिति निर्देशः
ब्रह्मणस्त्रिविधः स्मृतः
ब्रह्मणस्त्रिविधः स्मृतः
ब्राह्मणास्तेन वेदाश्च
ब्राह्मणास्तेन वेदाश्च
यज्ञाश्च विहिताः पुरा
यज्ञाश्च विहिताः पुरा
ॐ तत्सदिति निर्देशः ब्रह्मणस्त्रिविधः स्मृतः ब्राह्मणास्तेन वेदाश्च यज्ञाश्च विहिताः पुरा
ॐ तत्सदिति निर्देशः ब्रह्मणस्त्रिविधः स्मृतः ब्राह्मणास्तेन वेदाश्च यज्ञाश्च विहिताः पुरा
तस्मादोमित्युदाहृत्य
तस्मादोमित्युदाहृत्य
यज्ञदानतपः क्रियाः
यज्ञदानतपः क्रियाः
प्रवर्तन्ते विधानोक्ताः
प्रवर्तन्ते विधानोक्ताः
सततं ब्रह्मवादिनाम्
सततं ब्रह्मवादिनाम्
तस्मादोमित्युदाहृत्य यज्ञदानतपः क्रियाः प्रवर्तन्ते विधानोक्ताः सततं ब्रह्मवादिनाम्
तस्मादोमित्युदाहृत्य यज्ञदानतपः क्रियाः प्रवर्तन्ते विधानोक्ताः सततं ब्रह्मवादिनाम् तदित्यनभिसन्धाय
फलं यज्ञतपः क्रियाः
फलं यज्ञतपः क्रियाः
दानक्रियाश्च विविधाः
दानक्रियाश्च विविधाः
क्रियन्ते मोक्षकाङ्क्षिभिः
क्रियन्ते मोक्षकाङ्क्षिभिः
तदित्यनभिसन्धाय फलं यज्ञतपः क्रियाः दानक्रियाश्च विविधाः क्रियन्ते मोक्षकाङ्क्षिभिः
तदित्यनभिसन्धाय फलं यज्ञतपः क्रियाः दानक्रियाश्च विविधाः क्रियन्ते मोक्षकाङ्क्षिभिः
सद्भावे साधुभावे च
सद्भावे साधुभावे च
तदित्येतत् प्रयुज्यते
सदित्येतत् प्रयुज्यते
प्रशस्ते कर्मणि तथा
प्रशस्ते कर्मणि तथा
सच्छब्दः पार्थयुज्यते
सच्छब्दः पार्थयुज्यते
सद्भावे साधुभावे च सतित्येतत् प्रयुज्यते प्रशस्ते कर्मणि तथा सच्छब्दः पार्थयुज्यते
सद्भावे साधुभावे च सदित्येतत् प्रयुज्यते प्रशस्ते कर्मणि तथा सच्छब्दः पार्थयुज्यते यज्ञे तपसि दाने च
यज्ञे तपसि दाने च
स्थितिः सदिति चोच्यते
स्थितिः सदिति चोच्यते
कर्म चैव तदर्थीयम्
कर्म चैव तदर्थीयम्
सदित्येवाभिधीयते
सदित्येवाभिधीयते
यज्ञे तपसि दाने च स्थितिः सदिति चोच्यते कर्म चैव तदर्थीयम् सदित्येवाभिधीयते
यज्ञे तपसि दाने च स्थितिः सदिति चोच्यते कर्म चैव तदर्थीयम् सदित्येवाभिधीयते
अश्रद्धया हुतं दत्तम्
अश्रद्धया हुतं दत्तम्
तपस्तप्तं कृतं च यत्
तपस्तप्तं कृतं च यत्
असदित्युच्यते पार्थ
असदित्युच्यते पार्थ
न च तत्प्रेत्य नो इह
न च तत्प्रेत्य नो इह
अश्रद्धया हुतं दत्तं तपस्तप्तं कृतं च यत् असदित्युच्यते पार्थ न च तत्प्रेत्य नो इह
अश्रद्धया हुतं दत्तं तपस्तप्तं कृतं च यत् असदित्युच्यते पार्थ न च तत्प्रेत्य नो इह
ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे श्रद्धात्रयविभागयोगो नाम सप्तदशोऽध्यायः। ॐ वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णौ वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। ॐ श्रीपरमात्मने नमः। अथाष्टादशोऽध्यायः। अर्जुन उवाच
अर्जुन उवाच
सन्न्यासस्य महाबाहो
सन्न्यासस्य महाबाहो
तत्त्वमिच्छामि वेदितुम्
तत्त्वमिच्छामि वेदितुम्
त्यागस्य च हृषीकेश
त्यागस्य च हृषीकेश
पृथक् केशिनिषूदन।
पृथक् केशिनिषूदन।
अर्जुन उवाच सन्न्यासस्य महाबाहो तत्त्वमिच्छामि वेदितुम् त्यागस्य च हृषीकेश पृथक् केशिनिषूदन
अर्जुन उवाच सन्न्यासस्य महाबाहो तत्त्वमिच्छामि वेदितुम् त्यागस्य च हृषीकेश पृथक् केशिनिषूदन
श्रीभगवानुवाच
श्रीभगवानुवाच
काम्यानां कर्मणान्यासम्
काम्यानां कर्मणान्यासम्
सन्न्यासं कवयो विदुः
सन्न्यासं कवयो विदुः
सर्वकर्मफलत्यागम्
सर्वकर्मफलत्यागम्
प्राहुस्त्यागं विचक्षणाः
प्राहुस्त्यागं विचक्षणाः
श्रीभगवानुवाच काम्यानां कर्मणान्यासम् सन्न्यासं कवयो विदुः सर्वकर्मफलत्यागम् प्राहुस्त्यागं विचक्षणाः
श्रीभगवानुवाच काम्यानां कर्मणान्यासं सन्न्यासं कवयो विदुः सर्वकर्मफलत्यागं प्राहुस्त्यागं विचक्षणाः त्याज्यं दोषवदित्येके
त्याज्यं दोषवदित्येके
कर्म प्राहुर्मनीषिणः
कर्म प्राहुर्मनीषिणः
यज्ञदानतपः कर्म
यज्ञदानतपः कर्म
न त्याज्यमिति चापरे
न त्याज्यमिति चापरे
त्याज्यं दोषवदित्येके कर्म प्राहुर्मनीषिणः यज्ञदानतपः कर्म न त्याज्यमिति चापरे
त्याज्यं दोषवदित्येके कर्म प्राहुर्मनीषिणः यज्ञदानतपः कर्म न त्याज्यमिति चापरे
निश्चयं शृणु मे तत्र
निश्चयं शृणु मे तत्र
त्यागे भरतसत्तम
त्यागे भरतसत्तम
त्यागो हि पुरुषव्याघ्र
त्यागो हि पुरुषव्याघ्र
त्रिविधः सम्प्रकीर्तितः
त्रिविधः सम्प्रकीर्तितः
निश्चयं शृणु मे तत्र त्यागे भरतसत्तम त्यागो हि पुरुषव्याघ्र त्रिविधः सम्प्रकीर्तितः
निश्चयं शृणु मे तत्र त्यागे भरतसत्तम त्यागो हि पुरुषव्याघ्र त्रिविधः सम्प्रकीर्तितः
यज्ञदानतपः कर्म
यज्ञदानतपः कर्म
न त्याज्यं कार्यमेव तत्
न त्याज्यं कार्यमेव तत्
यज्ञो दानं तपश्चैव
यज्ञो दानं तपश्चैव
पावनानि मनीषिणाम्
पावनानि मनीषिणाम्
यज्ञदानतपः कर्म न त्याज्यं कार्यमेव तत् यज्ञो दानं तपश्चैव पावनानि मनीषिणाम्
यज्ञदानतपः कर्म न त्याज्यं कार्यमेव तत् यज्ञो दानं तपश्चैव पावनानि मनीषिणाम्
एतान्यपि तु कर्माणि
एतान्यपि तु कर्माणि
सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलानि च
सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलानि च
कर्तव्यानीति मे पार्थ
कर्तव्यानीति मे पार्थ
निश्चितं मतमुत्तमम्
निश्चितं मतमुत्तमम्
एतान्यपि तु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलानि च कर्तव्यानीति मे पार्थ निश्चितं मतमुत्तमम्
एतान्यपि तु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलानि च कर्तव्यानीति मे पार्थ निश्चितं मतमुत्तमम् नियतस्य तु सन्न्यासः हरि ओम
Sunilji has to unmute and join.
नियतस्य तु सन्न्यासः
I think there is Sunilji has some problem. Sunilji, can you hear? Just 1 second. You made you as co-host, you know. Yeah, you can rejoin. Yeah. Sorry about that. There is a small glitch. So Sunilji is just going to rejoin. I think then I'll make Srihariji to continue, okay? I think there's a problem. So Srihariji, can you take over Sunilji's part, please?
Okay.
नियतस्य तु सन्न्यासः
नियतस्य तु सन्न्यासः
कर्मणो नोपपद्यते
कर्मणो नोपपद्यते
मोहात् तस्य परित्यागः
मोहात् तस्य परित्यागः
तामसः परिकीर्तितः
तामसः परिकीर्तितः
नियतस्य तु सन्न्यासः कर्मणो नोपपद्यते मोहात् तस्य परित्यागः तामसः परिकीर्तितः
नियतस्य तु सन्न्यासः कर्मणो नोपपद्यते मोहात् तस्य परित्यागः तामसः परिकीर्तितः
दुःखमित्येव यत्कर्म
दुःखमित्येव यत्कर्म
कायक्लेशभयात् त्यजेत्
कायक्लेशभयात् त्यजेत्
सकृत्वा राजसं
सकृत्वा राजसं
नैव त्यागफलं लभेत्
नैव त्यागफलं लभेत्
दुःखमित्येव यत्कर्म कायक्लेशभयात् त्यजेत् सकृत्वा राजसं नैव त्यागफलं लभेत्
दुःखमित्येव यत्कर्म कायक्लेशभयात् त्यजेत् सकृत्वा राजसं नैव त्यागफलं लभेत्
कार्यमित्येव यत्कर्म
कार्यमित्येव यत्कर्म
नियतं क्रियतेऽर्जुन
नियतं क्रियतेऽर्जुन
सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलं चैव
सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलं चैव
सत्यागः सात्विको मतः
सत्यागः सात्विको मतः
कार्यमित्येव यत्कर्म नियतं क्रियतेऽर्जुन सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलं चैव सत्यागः सात्विको मतः
कार्यमित्येव यत्कर्म नियतं क्रियतेऽर्जुन सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलं चैव सत्यागः सात्विको मतः
न द्वेष्ट्य कुशलं कर्म
न द्वेष्ट्य कुशलं कर्म
कुशलेनानुषज्यते
कुशलेनानुषज्यते
त्यागी सत्त्वसमाविष्टः
त्यागी सत्त्वसमाविष्टः
मेधावी छिन्न संशयः
मेधावी छिन्न संशयः
न द्वेष्ट्य कुशलं कर्म कुशलेनानुषज्यते त्यागी सत्त्वसमाविष्टः मेधावी छिन्न संशयः
न द्वेष्ट्य कुशलं कर्म कुशलेनानुषज्यते त्यागी सत्त्वसमाविष्टः मेधावी छिन्न संशयः न हि देहभृता शक्यम्
न हि देहभृता शक्यम्
त्यक्तुं कर्माण्यशेषतः
त्यक्तुं कर्माण्यशेषतः
यस्तु कर्मफलत्यागी
यस्तु कर्मफलत्यागी
त्यागीत्यभिधीयते
सत्यागीत्यभिधीयते
न हि देहभृता शक्यं त्यक्तुं कर्माण्यशेषतः यस्तु कर्मफलत्यागी सत्यागीत्यभिधीयते
न हि देहभृता शक्यं त्यक्तुं कर्माण्यशेषतः यस्तु कर्मफलत्यागी सत्यागीत्यभिधीयते
अनिष्टमिष्टं मिश्रं च
अनिष्टमिष्टं मिश्रं च
त्रिविधं कर्मणः फलम्
त्रिविधं कर्मणः फलम्
भवत्यत्यागिनां प्रेत्य
भवत्यत्यागिनां प्रेत्य
न तु सन्न्यासिनां क्वचित्
न तु सन्न्यासिनां क्वचित्
अनिष्टमिष्टं मिश्रं च त्रिविधं कर्मणः फलम् भवत्यत्यागिनां प्रेत्य न तु सन्न्यासिनां क्वचित्
अनिष्टमिष्टं मिश्रं च त्रिविधं कर्मणः फलम् भवत्यत्यागिनां प्रेत्य न तु सन्न्यासिनां क्वचित्
पञ्चैतानि महाबाहो
पञ्चैतानि महाबाहो
कारणानि निबोध मे
कारणानि निबोध मे
साङ्ख्ये कृतान्ते प्रोक्तानि
साङ्ख्ये कृतान्ते प्रोक्तानि
सिद्धये सर्वकर्मणाम्
सिद्धये सर्वकर्मणाम्
पञ्चैतानि महाबाहो कारणानि निबोध मे साङ्ख्ये कृतान्ते प्रोक्तानि सिद्धये सर्वकर्मणाम्
पञ्चैतानि महाबाहो कारणानि निबोध मे साङ्ख्ये कृतान्ते प्रोक्तानि सिद्धये सर्वकर्मणाम्
अधिष्ठानं तथा कर्ता
अधिष्ठानं तथा कर्ता
करणं च पृथग्विधम्
करणं च पृथक्विधम्
विविधाश्च पृथक् चेष्टाः
विविधाश्च पृथक् चेष्टाः
दैवं चैवात्र पञ्चमम्
दैवं चैवात्र पञ्चमम्
अधिष्ठानं तथा कर्ता करणं च पृथग्विधम् विविधाश्च पृथक् चेष्टा दैवं चैवात्र पञ्चमम्
अधिष्ठानं तथा कर्ता करणं च पृथक्विधम् विविधाश्च पृथक् चेष्टाः दैवं चैवात्र पञ्चमम्
वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्.
Thank you so much to all the wonderful chanters, and we had a small glitch with Sunilji's joining. I think even though he was made as co-host, I think he had to rejoin. There was some trouble, so apologies for those that small glitch. Sometimes it happens in Zoom meetings. So now the verses given in the earlier slides are actually from different great Gita commentators from various traditions, including Swami Chinmayanandaji, Swami Dayanandaji, Swami Gambhiranandaji, George Wehrstein, Swami Vireshwarananda, Ekanathishwaran, Dr. Radhakrishnan, Swami Rama, Yuvan Maskaro, Dr. Krishnamariar, Swami Kundananda, Swami Shivananda, and Natarajguru. So these are all the various Swamijis and authorities from various dimensions and various traditions, so as to give a full picture of the Bhagavad Gita from various angles. So now we move over to Gita Mahatmya. So this will be chanted by Umaji.
अथ गीता माहात्म्यम् ॐ गीताशास्त्रमिदं पुण्यं यः पठेत् प्रयतः पुमान् विष्णोः पदमवाप्नोति भयशोकादिवर्जितः गीताध्ययनशीलस्य प्राणायामपरस्य च नैव सन्ति हि पापानि पूर्वजन्मकृतानि च मलनिर्मोचनं पुंसां जलस्नानन्दिने दिने सकृद्गीताम्भसि स्नानं संसारमलनाशनं गीतासु गीता कर्तव्या किमन्यैः शास्त्रविस्तरैः या स्वयं पद्मनाभस्य मुख पद्मात् विनिसृता भारतामृत सर्वस्वं विष्णोर्वक्त्रात् विनिसृतं गीता गंगोदकं पीत्वा पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् एकं शास्त्रं देवकी पुत्र गीतम् एको देवो देवकी पुत्र एव एको मन्त्रस्तस्य नामानि यानि कर्माप्येकन्तस्य देवस्य सेवा ॐ तत्सत्.
Thank you, Umaji, for that beautiful chanting of Gita Mahatmya. So now we come to the talk session for this session 16, and this will be done by Sri Rajshekhar-ji, who is the CEO of Indo Endowment Board Singapore, and he is a very acute listener of Bhagavad Gita as well as a student of Bhagavad Gita. And last year also he spoke beautifully, and we are eagerly waiting to listen to Rajshekhar-ji. So over to Rajshekhar-ji, please. Rajshekhar-ji, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Om Shuklam Baradaram Vishnum Sasivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Kayena Vacha Manasindriyaiva Buddhyatmana va Prakriti Svabhavat Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayaneti Samarpayami Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vaitraika Panaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gita Mradudhe Namaha Vasudeva Sudam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardanam Devahi Paramanantam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Hari Om. Thank you for inviting me today. I'm very, very conscious of speaking amongst those who have been reading, studying, chanting Gita for many, many years. So I am actually a novice. Yes, I've read the Gita a couple of times. Due to such requests, I read a bit more, and thank you very much for that. I can't read the Gita in the Sanskrit. I read in English and Tamil. So there may be some differences in interpretations. If my brief speech this morning adds value, it is Lord Krishna's blessings. I seek your forgiveness for any errors and omissions that occur beyond my understanding. Bhagavad Gita's 18 chapters can be divided. I mean, most of us know, like when we say divided to 3 sections, we often think of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. But it's also said, and I've heard from others, Swamijis, that it's like 3 books put together. The first 6 chapters talk about how individuals should behave, how an individual should conduct himself or herself, how yogic discipline has to be the central motive of spiritual seeker. But from the 7th chapter onwards, the Supreme Lord assumes a different position. So in the first 6 chapters, he speaks as a friend, philosopher, and guide to Arjuna. From 7th chapter, he speaks as a representative of the Almighty. His tone changes. He's no more the teacher of the ordinary type. He's not a simple friend of Arjuna or a philosopher, but God himself speaking. Therefore, the ideas of like come to me, resort to me, be intent on me, depend on me, surrender yourself to me. These are the voices we hear from 7th chapter onwards. Then comes the last 6 chapters where we are guided on how to achieve the unity between individual and Almighty. So commentators often relate this to the Tattvamasi, thou art there, which encapsulated in these 3 divisions. So in the individual is Tvam, that is thou in the first 6 chapters. Tat means that, the supreme in the next 6 chapters. And then Asi, that is art in the final 6 chapters. So that's the Mula Mantra of Bhagavad Gita. So Gita, as they say, is an instructional manual to understand oneself, understand God, and the journey or unity between man and God. So today's chapter of chapter 17 is very important to all of us. Like how Professor Rajesh Rai said, we live in this world and we act in this world, we think and speak in this world, and this chapter guides us. It's difficult, but yet it guides you on what is the right thing to do. Shraddhatraya Vibhaga Yoga, 28 verses that enlightens Arjuna on the Trigunas, often described as the yoga of the threefold faiths based on the gunas of Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic. So we all know that the gunas, everyone is born with faith. The gunas are born out of Prakriti. They're very powerful. It drives our mind, thoughts, and action. So the gunas are attributed to Maya, that veils God who resides in ourselves. It binds us to the material world. So the whole endeavor is to how do you free yourself from it. First ascend to Sattvic and then free ourselves. Even avatars are not spared from these powerful drivers of Maya. So, I mean, we have often heard in Ramayana where Rama is also, distraught in various instances. So it is a powerful illusion that keeps man away from the Almighty, the Brahman. So Lord Krishna introduces and defines gunas in chapter 14 itself. Then he kind of builds up. In fact, I think he's trying to tell Arjuna that all the people you see on the Kaurava side, they have done a lot of things that you have done, but they are quite different. It is about attitude. So in chapter 7, Lord Krishna dwells deeper to explain the nature of gunas. Based on the gunas, chapter 17 talks about the 3 types of food, 3 types of austerities, 3 types of charity. So I find this chapter is talking to every man. It points out the missteps. It reminds us of the deviations that we have in life and yet continue to do so. So Arjuna immediately launches into a question in the first verse itself. He says, "O Lord, those who do not follow the injunctions of the scriptures, but work with faith, that is, work with intent, what do you say about them? Are they sattvic or rajasic or tamasic? Under what category do they come? Those who have intense faith and honestly do something without consulting the scriptures, do you consider them as sattvic people? Are they good people or bad people? What is your opinion?" So he has to make up his mind. I'm here in the battlefield. I'm going to wage war. I have questions about the people I'm going to fight with. But they've also done all the things I've done. But what is the difference? That's what he's asking. So, of course, Lord Krishna may have guided him to ask that question too, and he's answering. He's setting it up, right from chapter 14, the distinction between right attitude that has to go along with the action. So chapter 16, he expounds on the Devashura Sambhadit Vivah Yoga. So what is the Deva behavior? What is Ashura behavior? What is the Sambandham? What is the connection? If all go through the same environment, training and even upbringing, there still are significant differences in personal preferences and behavior. So he says, let the scriptures guide you. So you cannot do it without the guidance from the scriptures. If you do it like just a plain action, it does not give the outcome. So he begins to explain the various gunas. He says anyone can follow the prescribed set of actions, but without the right faith or mindset, the outcome is different. So verse 4 states clearly how the gunas drive one to worship different kinds of powers, from God or yaksha or rakshasa or spirits. So of course, these relate to the sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. While one type of power may yield quite quick results, it is harmful in the long run. So often we have heard that, there are some people who can do such things, but they have gone the wrong route maybe, right? So verses 5, 6 talks about the severe austerities one performs, but Lord Krishna says that it is not propagated by the scriptures. He even goes to say that severe austerities harms him, the ultimate reality that resides in everyone. So it's not about going away from the mainstream of life and being hungry or sleepless and doing severe austerity. That's not about that. So he says that. So verses 8 to 10 talks about the type of food that is preferred by people of different gunas. So preferred. So persons in the mode of goodness prefer food that promote lifespan, virtues, strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. And they are, of course, Prof. Rajesh pointed out, it's very, very difficult in the current circumstances to grow your own food fresh and cook them and eat them. Much of the food is imported. They could have been there many months. But yet, within the constraints of where we live in, we have to still choose that which is nourishing, that which is good food. Foods that are too, bitter, sour, salty, hot. These are pungent. All of that is, what we crave. Sometimes the taste buds crave, but these increase a person's mode of passion. Is more rajasic in nature. And even doctors tell you when you go and consult, please reduce your salt, reduce your spices, chilies, and so on, because there is something that is happening in our body as we grow older. We have actually been very rajasic in nature, and we need to let go of those. So such foods produce pain, grief, and disease. Foods that are overcooked, stale, putrid, polluted, impure, or are preferred by persons who are mode of ignorance, right? So they don't know what they're eating. They just eat that without even thinking. So verses 11 to 13 talks about the attitudes towards sacrifice, yajna. Sacrifice without expectations of rewards is beneficial in a sattvic guna. Sacrifice with intent of benefit is of rajasic guna, and sacrifice done robotically without thought, faith, or even offering any prasad or charity, dana, is tamasic in nature. So this is very, very instructive to us, because many a times we pray, act, and perform rituals with an intent, okay, asking God for something. So the me and I want becomes big. So it is not loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. It's in our minds, but sometimes when, right from a simple archana to a homam, whatever, we often say, I want this, I want that. Sometimes I'm even disturbed when the chamakam is chanted, because while, it's got a lot of I want. But I suppose that's in a different context. And even if it is in the context of I want, the personal endeavor should be, how do I get out of that? So maybe in this loka samasta sukhino bhavantu, we are not very in tune with the samasta for everybody. Often we think about, I should have more than the neighbor, I should have more than others, I should have a bigger car, bigger house, bigger this, bigger that, more education, more wealth. I suppose that's difficult to control. That is the guna, the tendency of human mind and thought and body. And that's what Lord Krishna is trying to tell us. We have to escape from this. We have to get out of this. And I'm guiding you. So I suppose it's food for thought for all of us. So verses 14 to I think 19 talks about right mind frame towards performing austerities. It has to be clean, simple, non-violent, truthful, inoffensive. If you're simple, clean, it's austerity of the body. Truthful, inoffensive is recitation of the scriptures, declared austerities of speech. No need to hurt anyone. Serenity of thought, gentleness, silence, self-control, purity of purpose are declared austerities of the mind. So if we follow these threefold austerities, then we are sattvic. If we perform these with ostentation for the sake of gaining honor, respect, adoration, then it is rajasic. Its benefits are transitory and unstable. Austerities that are performed with those confused mind, notion, involves torturing the self or harming others, definitely it is tamasic. So sometimes we also must understand it is not about getting the biggest of pujas done with many people coming in and everybody telling you, great, you did this. It's not about that too. Verses 20 to 23 describes the attitude towards charity or dana. Here in Singapore, we sometimes seen as the land of plenty. There's a lot of charity going on. But here it says charity given to a worthy person is without consideration or anything in return, at the proper time and in the proper place, is stated to be in the mode of goodness or sattvic. A charity that is given with reluctance or hope of return or in expectation of a reward is said to be more of a, rajasic in nature. Charity which is given at the wrong place at the wrong time, when people don't even require it, then it is tamasic in nature. So many of the low-income families often tell us, I have enough rice, enough oil, enough dal, but I don't have anything else. So people have just given the charity without even asking whether they need it. Well, we do it with good intent, but sometimes we need to think even deeper. So through this exposition of chapter 17, Lord Krishna wishes to remove from Arjuna's mind the last doubts before he realizes the divine power. Arjuna still may have harbored thoughts of great, on the opposite side, great sages, warriors, who are kin and kith in Kurukshetra, who are worthy based on their lifestyle. Yet Krishna made it abundantly clear. It is the attitude, the state of mind, and innate guna that is driving, which makes all the difference. So 2 persons performing the same yajna, tapa, or dana does not yield the same outcome. Having heard all of this from the Lord, we should ask ourselves several key questions. Are we born with the gunas? Yes. But is it hereditary? No. Is it caste-based, class-based, race-based, religion-based? No. We cannot claim just because all of this is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, it belongs to the Indians and the Hindus. It belongs to the entire world because every human being is born with the guna. In fact, I've also read that the Zoroastrians have a very, 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 very similar verses in the Zen Avastha. It's also about speech, deed, and what you do, and what you eat. It's very, very similar verses in the Avastha by the Zoroastrians. So answer to all the questions that I just asked, is it hereditary, caste-based, class-based, race-based, religion-based? It's an emphatic no. We must believe in it. Okay? So all human beings are born with gunas. It is the nature. And it is our vasanas from maybe previous lives. Yet each life is in our hands to drive it in a different direction. Is it fate? Is it something that we cannot change? No. We can create a new end or a new beginning. The end of life, the beginning of new life, we can change that. So punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jagadare shayanam, ye samsare bahudushtare, kripaya pare pahi murare. We can change it. We can change the gunas. What I would call as circularly iterative. And in my mind is ascending. That means it's a circle, but it's also going upwards. That is, the right food, right attitude, right austerities, right sacrifice, right charity will increase our sattvic gunas. And the more sattvic guna that we accumulate through all that will also make us prefer the right food, the right austerities, the right sacrifice, and right charity. So from tamasic, you can move on to rajasic. From rajasic, you move on to sattvic. From sattvic, we then go on to unity with Brahman, even escaping those sattvic qualities. So strangely, our buddhi tells us the right things, but we deviate from it. We do not listen to the voice within. We know what to do, but we don't control our tendencies. That's how I feel. So intent is to get to the path that we already know is right. If God is omnipresent and omniscient, then there's only one God. There is only God. Nothing else exists. Our ego does not exist. There is no time and space. It's here. So God is now in here. So what stops us from realization are the very gunas that we are bound with. We are challenged by the nature of man. Like how a rocket requires immense amount of energy to escape the natural forces of gravity, we require great divine energy to escape the natural forces of gunas. And we need to take the steps now and very consciously. So what do? We consciously, of all our speech, thoughts, and action, in all our speech, thoughts, and actions, do the right thing. Good speech, good thoughts, good action with less material desires will make us lighter and we shall ascend. Eventually, we will free ourselves from the gunas, good, bad, and the ugly ones. So let us realize that even Sattvic Guna weighs us down. It is still born out of Prakriti and Maya, so we need to go forth. Did we decide when we wanted to be born? Do we know when we exactly will die? Similarly, we cannot decide when we will be freed from samsara. Then Lord Krishna comes in with this mantra, Om Tat Sat, in chapter 17. He gives a tool that we can use to practice that dissociation, rising through the gunas and escaping from the gunas. So Om Tat Sats have been declared as a symbolic representation of the supreme absolute truth. From the beginning of creation, from them came everything. Therefore, when performing acts of sacrifice, offering charity, undertaking penance, we should utter Om. Persons who do not desire fruitive rewards but seek to be free from material entanglement utter the word Tat. And the word Sat means eternal existence and goodness. So he's saying, O Arjuna, it is also used to describe the auspicious actions. Being established in the performance of sacrifice, penance, and charity is also described by the word Sat. So he then goes forth in chapter 18 to talk about concludes the instruction to Arjuna on how to go beyond all the actions and reaction. Offer all to Brahman and be free. Brahmarpanam is the way. So we shall all strive to follow the path that Lord Krishna has prescribed in the Gita, yet listening intently to the inner self. There is a voice in us which is sometimes very soft. We need to quiet our mind to listen to the voice. So he's there constantly instructing us. As Lord Krishna says in chapter 9, verse 27, Yat karoshi yat tanasi yat juhoshi dada siyat yat tapasyami kaunteya tat kurusheva madarpanam. So whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer as oblation to the sacred fire, whatever you bestow as a gift, and whatever austerities you perform, O son of Kunti, do them as an offering to me. Asatoma satgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Rajshekharji, for the beautiful and wonderful enunciation on chapter 17, one of the very, very important chapters for in the Bhagavad Gita, especially as related to our current living. I really, you have talked about all the aspects, and what really struck me really very, very fantastic that I thought was that you are saying that the idea of our gunas or our nature is not hereditary, it's meant for the whole humanity. It's really the message of unity of the entire humanity. It's not just for a particular religion or a caste or a creed or a language or anything like that. It's for the whole of the humanity. So fantastic. That is the way it should be. Thank you so much. And I think we should also get some interaction with Zen Avastha, somebody who can enunciate more about Zoroastrianism. I think HEP should take some action on this topic also. It'll be nice if we can have some interactive sessions, with other religions. So that'll be great. I think there will be a lot of questions on this in this chapter, because there are a number of topics which we can discuss. But we will wait till the end of the session, so that we'll continue and complete this session for today. And after that, we can have a question and answer session for where everybody can ask their questions. So please be around, Rajshekharji. So with your permission, we will continue with the rest of the session, and after that we'll come back to you. And so thank you once again for that beautiful talk. Okay, now we have actually like in all previous sessions, we are having a mini quiz which is for this session. So the whole idea here is that there are two types of questions, and first type is about to be answered in a few words, and second to be answered in a few sentences of about 20 or 25 words. This set of questions in this session is only on chapter 17. So it'll be very interesting to correlate this with the talk given by Rajshekhar-ji. And without going through the actual text of the materials, it will be impossible to answer the questions. So it's essential, if you want to answer the questions, it will be important and essential to go through the actual text itself. So because these questions are quite, we go deep into the text itself. And the questions can be, are online questions only. So there'll be no answers or question answers to be given online, to be given orally. It has to be answered as a Google Sheet, and the Google Sheet link is given here. So it is actually tinyurl.com mini Gita mini quiz S16. S stands for session 16. Similar to earlier ones, S1, 2, 3 up till S16. All the 16 are still available. So anybody wants answers can still answer. We will get back to these answers in sometime in future. Okay, now let's get to the questions. These are the type 1 questions to be answered in a few words, maybe 5 or 6 or something like that. So the first question is in 1703, the third verse of this chapter, Sattvan Rupa Sarvasya. Lord Krishna says that one's true nature is determined by his or her what? That is a question here. If you read the verse here, you will be able to answer this. And in verse 17 or 8, the next question, Ayu Sattva Balarogya. What are the characteristics of sattvic food that Krishna is describing? So the whole effort here is that we actually go through the whole text and take out some of the important things, because it's impossible to ask all the questions. Cover the entire chapter here. So we'll only take up things which we think are very important for us. So in 1711, similarly, is about sattvic yajna. What are the things that actually determine or the characteristics of sattvic yajna? Yajna which is sattvic, and the previous question was yajna, which is food that is sattvic. And the next one is tapas. That is basically the austerity or the spiritual disciplines that actually make the body, mind, and the words to be sattvic. Basically, the words he uses are shariram, mana, and vangmayam. So these are the three words that Lord Krishna uses in the Gita. And the final question in this thing is, not all kinds of dana or penance, or donations or gifts or charity is desirable to or sattvic. So actually, this also Rajshekhar talked about. So it's important that we understand and make charity after knowing the qualities of the charity that makes it sattvic, so that it doesn't go to the wrong hands. And a lot of things are actually characteristics are described by Lord Krishna here, which we should know before making charity to be sattvic. So these are all actually important things. It's not random. Any charity is not good enough. And the next set of questions are actually more detailed questions. So in verses 17, first 3 verses, 17, 1 to 3, talks about Shraddha. So Shraddha is actually, typically it is being interpreted as faith, but there is more to it. And what exactly is this Shraddha? That is a question here. This is a bit of a tricky question. This cannot be answered just by reading these verses. So you'll have to need to go into a deeper text of Vedanta to understand what exactly this Shraddha means. Next question is on 14 to 16, verses 14 to 16. Krishna talks about the nature of tapas, or the penance, or the spiritual discipline for the body, that is shariram, and manas, that is manasam, and words, vangmayam. So what are the things actually that constitute the tapas of the body, the mind, and the words? So this also is a very interesting question. And the next question is, what are the threefold symbol of Brahman that just now Rajshekhar also talked about? And how are these symbols used as per the succeeding verses? So he said there are Gita talks about how the Om is used, and how the Tat is used, and how the Sat, the three words are used. The three symbols of the Brahman is used. And in the next verses 17, 05 and 06, Krishna is critical of the extreme forms of asceticism and body torture as spiritual practice. And what are the reasons for this? Actually, we will see a number of such instances all around us. So this body torture, and even Lord Buddha has talked about in his Dharmabada, where he actually became on the way to his samadhi, to his achieving this liberation, nirvana. He actually condemns these extreme forms of asceticism. So what exactly is Krishna talking about in 1705 to 06? So this is a question here. And finally, the question is asat, unreality. So what is asat as per verse 1728? So normally we talk about sat a lot, but Krishna says something is asat. So the question here is, what is this asat that he's talking about? Unreal. We can loosely call it as unreal in 1728. So this again will need to go into the actual text and answer. And the answers can be given in this tiny URL, Gita Mini Quiz S16. So if you go there, you will be able to see the same questions and also give the answers. They will be collected, and we will do something about it later. Okay, so now finally we come to the final part of this session for today, and we reach the concluding mantras, and this will be done by Sunilji. And over to Sunilji, please.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhanyuntaramurtaye Amritakalashahastaya Sarvamaya Vinashanaya Trailokyanataya Mahavishnave Swaha. Om Achyutaya Namaha. Om Anantaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha. Om Achyutaya Namaha. Om Anantaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha. Om Achyutaya Namaha. Om Anantaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Bante Jagadgurum Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Kayena Vacha Manasendriyarva Buddhyatmanava Prakrite Swabhava Karomi Yat Sakalam Parasme Narayanayeti Samarpayami. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om.
Thank you so much, Sunilji, for this Shanti mantras, and also to all the chanters who have done a brilliant job today, as always. So now we have some announcements. This articles invitations no more applicable because the deadline is already over. So we will have a Bhajan Sandhya session, which is coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow between 6 p.m. It'll be available online, free of cost, at Gita Jayanti's Facebook page as well as YouTube channel. And the bhajans will be rendered by Dr. Bhagyamurthy and her students. She is is one of the very, very well-known singers of Singapore and Carnatic music singers. And she has actually nurtured and guided a number of students. So a number of our students are also participating in this. So please do join. It's just about 50 minutes or so. And we also have a visual art paintings exhibition by Gargi Sen, a local visual artist, painter from Singapore. So these are happening tomorrow on Gita Jayanti's Facebook page at 6 p.m. On Facebook page as well as YouTube channel. So on both it will be available. So please join and enjoy yourself with the bhajans, beautiful bhajans. And the other announcement is Likhit Gita Samarpan is basically a new initiative by Gita Jayanti, and where you can actually write the whole of the text of the Bhagavad Gita in your own handwriting. So it's important to write in your own handwriting, not just type out on the computer. And because to learn Gita and to get a personal touch with it, you can write in a notebook with your own hand, with a pencil or a pen or whatever it is, and in your own preferred language. Any language is fine as long as you are true to the source text. And this can be submitted at the altar on the Mokshada Ekadashi day, where we can actually pick up a large number of participants will be chanting the whole of the Bhagavad Gita. So with those vibrations, so the entire chanting by a large number of groups, we can actually take back those your own notebooks and keep it with you, and it can be a new source of inspiration for you. And then we have the Sampurna Gita Parayan, as I said earlier, on the 4th of December, which happens to be the actual the day in which the Gita was actually revealed to the world. I wouldn't say that it was actually spoken by Lord Krishna, but revealed to the world. So that's the right word, and to the world. So this is the day. Moksha is also called as Mokshada Ekadashi day. So on this day, we plan to have about 500 chanters, and we also request people to register for this on this link given here, https://bit.ly GJMEP22. MEP stands for Mokshada Ekadashi Parayan. So GJMEP22 is the link for registering for the Sampurna Parayan. Please do join as many people as possible. And then final announcement for today is we have the International Gita Forum by Swami Sarvapriyanandaji. He is one of the most well-known speakers on the Vedanta from Vedanta Society of New York, and he's traveling to Singapore, and he'll be delivering a number of talks, as you can see here on the flyer. First one is on Saturday, 3rd of December, called Enlightened Life, based on chapter 2, followed by on the 4th we have this Gita Mokshada Ekadashi and the Sampurna Parayan. Followed by on 5th, 6th, and 7th, he'll be delivering further lectures on divine nature, practices for enlightenment, and further practices, all based on chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita. And light dinner will be served, and all this happen at PGP Hall at 7 p.m. At Singapore time on all the days. So chapter on December 3rd, December 5th, December 6th, and December 7th, and on December 4th, we have Sampurna Gita Parayan. So these are all the announcements for today. And if Srimasni want to expand anything further, Srimasni, you want to add anything more to this? I think he's no more there. I think he was having some other appointment. Yeah. Okay. So this ends the session for today. And the next session will happen exactly 2 weeks from today. That is 12th of November. So that'll be the penultimate session. And that again will be on the same Zoom platform. So please do join. That'll be chapter 18, the first part of chapter 18, and it'll be the last session at September. The 18th session will cover the rest of the chapter 18. So this chapter 18 is actually coming in 3 parts, which is a very, very long chapter with 78 verses. And it's split into 3 different 3 sessions, because whole 78 cannot be chanted in one session. Okay, so we come to the end of this Parayan session for today. Now we can have the question and answer session, where people can ask questions to our Rajshekharji, and also others available here also can give their comments and feedback and etc. So before that, I request everybody to have to enable your video so that we can have a short photo session, and after that we can open. After that, you can unmute yourself and speak. Request everybody to enable your videos, please, so that we can take a photograph. And after that, request everybody to enable your videos, please. I think there are still some people not. Okay, now so now the floor is open for public. So anyone can actually unmute yourself and ask question to Rajshekhar ji, as well as, and also can be answered by others.
I would say that anyone please answer, because I'm like I said, while I spoke on the chapter 17, I'm still a student of Bhagavad Gita, and I'm sure a lot of others here are more well versed and read more than me. So there's a question already in the chat box.
Sorry, I didn't see. Okay, I'm sorry.
By Mr. Sivanand on this part about the food, which is seen as the Rajasic food. While I don't know whether I can attempt to answer it, but like I said, I suppose at the beginning we have our tendencies, we have our preferences on taste, and the food which is not does not have salt or does not have the taste is seen as not good for consumption. So all of this is there, but somehow our body actually sends us some signals as we grow older. We find something a bit more too salty or too sweet, and that means therefore we have to reduce them, but we don't listen. And that's how I see it. Yes, we continue with this disregarding the signals, then we end up with sickness and disease. Some of the food that is mentioned, which is like bitter gourd, agatikira, basically all these which are bitter, it's seen as good food, but probably it is seen as how it addresses some of the issues that are already created in the body. That it will solve those things. So amongst foods, there are also those that are causing issues and those that are medicinal in nature. And I suppose some are medicinal in nature, and we are often advised to take it, but we shouldn't become attached to it in a sense. Like there are people who would say, I want to have bitter gourd only, I want to have this only or that only, and it is told to me when I was young, it's good food. Yes, but anything, in Tamil, there is one saying, alavukku mijinal amridamam nanju. That means even amrita, if you go beyond a certain point, it becomes poison. So anything becomes poison beyond a certain point. I mean, that's all I can say, but I suppose others can offer a better answer to this question. Anyone, please.
Yeah, actually, I just read the Shankara Bhashyam on this. So Shankara Bhashyam says that the ati, that means the excessively, must be taken as to qualify each of the terms of bitter, sour, etc. So that is what Shankara Bhashyam says. So it is not just that it just being bitter or just sour is not really makes it rajasic, but ati kattu amla lavanatishna. So that is what Shankara Bhashyam says. It looks to be quite interesting interpretation to me. If there is somebody else can give a, if you want, I can actually show on the screen what Shankara Bhashyam says. I'll just show it on the screen itself so that you can be convinced. Let me just show this. Yeah. So this, what I'm showing right now, is actually the Shankara Bhashyam with the English translation for this particular verse. So it says, you can read here, the term ati, meaning excessively, must be taken to qualify each of these terms, bitter, sour, etc. Thus signifying excessively bitter, etc. These kinds of foods pleasing to the rajasic temperament cause or yield pain, suffering, and ill health. So this is one of the answers that I can think of. Maybe Sunilji or Rajeshji or others also can pitch in. Sunilji, you want to say anything? Yeah, Rajesh here. Yeah, Rajeshji.
Yeah, the same. Katva, Amla, Lavantishna, Tikshna, Rukcha, Vidahina. This is a very amazing description of the Rajasic food. So Katva, as you said, Lavana, Katva, Amla, Lavantishna. So what I understood, that very sour, very bitter, very salty, very pungent, very, 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 that kind of, the additive in the food is the Rajasic food. And something fried, something, fried means deep fried, and rukcha, it says rukcha, very, hard, or something which is rough in texture. So we have to go deeper into it, but I think intuitively we know what is Rajasic, what is Tamasic, what is Sattvic. Thank you.
Yeah, the interesting part about is what can be digestible easily. What Rajesh just said, something hard, something rough, then our body works harder. And over time, that may cause some issues. And, nowadays, we just went past Diwali, and one friend was saying, I was telling him, hey, you are a bit diabetic. Can you not consume? You know what he said? I'll just take 2 tablets. So, this is the attitude that people have. I just take 2 tablets and then I can have more of this, whatever sweet. And the other observation I've seen is, what actually, like I said earlier, doctors say, take less spicy food, less oily food whenever we are sick, and often they tell that to Indians especially. And thirdly, even nowadays when food is catered, there's we are supposed to put a little tent card there saying that this is cooked within the last 4 hours. And beyond 4 hours, we're not supposed to consume it. And in temples, because HEB is managing temples, we are very, very conscious of it. When people pack the food and bring it home and they eat it 8 hours or 12 hours or 2 days later, this is the tamasic part of it. In fact, without knowing the National Environment Agency or SFA, Food Agency also knows that anything that is beyond a particular time, the food starts to become bad. So that 4-hour mark is given. So
yeah, so
yes. Thanks.
Yeah, I was just adding, so very rightly you mentioned yata yamam gatarasam puti paryushitam cha yat. So I was also very curious to know what is this 1 yam. So 1 yam is 3 hours. So, normally the food which is cooked, Krishna is saying before 3 hours is supposed to be stale. And I also heard, but the food which is cooked and offered to the Lord, the rules change. Then it becomes prasad. So it is a recommendation. I've also heard many strange things that the food qualities for somebody who is enlightened really doesn't matter. So it also depends on the level of advancements the seeker has reached. Sorry, I interrupted you, Rajaji.
No, definitely. I think the last point you mentioned, I've also heard for enlightened souls, even the body does not sort of matter. So even if they consume food, it is not for them, for the soul, for the Atman. So the rule doesn't apply there.
Actually, I think it's also interesting to see this same word, the Yati Amam that is being interpreted by Shankara in Shankara Bhashyam. He says Yata Yamam is actually Mandapakvam. That's what he says. I'll again show the screen here. Mandapakvam means inadequately cooked, not that it is actually 3 hours old or something. So this is the interpretation that's given by Shankara Bhashyam, So it is quite interesting. I think you can see the screen, right?
Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is open to so many interpretation, but Ashtayam, 8 into 3 hours. So that measurement of time, the 3 hours also fits very well.
True. I agree. What I'm saying is this is none other than Shankara Bhashyam. So you can see here, Yatayamam is Mandapakvam. So that is, it says that tamasic mind is inadequately cooked. So that is the word, that is the interpretation that Shankaracharya gives to this word Yatayamam. It doesn't talk about the time at all. I mean, they are just, I'm not saying that the Yatayamam, the time factor also comes in. It's also one of the interpretations, definitely. But this is also another very, very important interpretation. That's what I just wanted to point out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and some very curious things are there in this chapter. For example, this verse 1, 1701, Arjuna asks a question, where do they stand who disregard the injunctions of scriptures but still worship me with faith? Is that faith in the mode of Sattva, Rajas, or Tamas? This is a question that Arjuna is asking to Krishna. And in the answer to this, the Shankara Bhagavad says that it's okay, you can have a mind. But Ramanujacharya in his commentary, he says that if it is not enough to, if you do not follow the injunctions of scriptures with knowingly or unknowingly, faith is not adequate. He says very clearly that it is important to follow the injunctions of scriptures, whether you like it or you don't like it, with faith or without faith, you must follow the injunctions. So he says very clearly. I mean, he's being far more strict on the pramana of the scriptures. So this is also another very interesting variations of interpretations by great masters. That is quite non-intuitive to us. I mean, we will think that Shraddha is enough, that only faith is enough for something to become great. But at least Ramanujacharya does not think so.
It's also time-based. As religion evolves, then people want instructions, a bit more prescriptive rather than interpretive. So if you talk about Sankaracharya, 7th century, maybe the time, the space, the people's maturity in terms of what is divine is different compared to Ramanuja's time. And also, it's the difference also between the Veda and the Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita Sampradaya. So it is instructive. That's how I see it. Of course, Krishna also says in the last chapter that please, if someone is not ready, there is no point sharing what is to be done. They are not mature enough. So don't confuse them, So in that sense, he says, okay, it's okay. They start off by doing the Shraddha without the actual scripture in mind, but he is probably saying they will evolve into the position that he wants them to go to.
Yeah, correct. Sunilji, you want to say anything, or Rajesh Shaji, you want to say anything on these topics?
Can I say something?
Sure, yeah, please.
No, I was just thinking, I know so many friends people who are vegetarians, yet they are so abusive and violent. But there are so many non-vegetarians who are very, very good. So is it really the food that makes you, or is it basically what you are? I mean, is it Krishna telling you more of an allegory, like you don't look at these dirty things, keep your mind purified? Or is it really food that we are talking about? Because if you look at some killing and a murder, I was discussing with a friend, the kingpin could be a vegetarian. So, or could be a person who's so following some discipline, chanting and all that. But even in movies, you find that the person who's most crooked are the sannyasis and the swamijis, and those are the people manipulating everything. So are we really talking about who is actually the person, the people who care for the elderly, the people who are really, really good? Those are we should try to find out how they are. I think this kind of food controlling us, I don't fully agree. And then also I feel tomorrow we might die, right? Why are we controlling what we want to eat? Why are we controlling? Of course, when you're having a problem and a sickness, fine. But when you're actually having some sort of a loving, you're going to die and you want to eat something and you don't even know tomorrow. COVID has shown us that we don't even know what's going to happen next. So why don't we eat something that we like to eat and then die? This kind of discrimination, eat all these things and you become good. You eat this kind of food and you're not good. I don't agree at all, because I know from personal experience about this abuse and violence, which is not at all discriminating between the people who eat good food and the people who eat bad food, and people who chant and who don't chant. I feel people who don't chant are much better than people who chant.
So Chitraji, very interesting observation. And if I can, just share my experience, I was a non-vegetarian 30 years back, so when I started reading Bhagavad Gita and started coming to know about the spiritual science, automatically I was drawn to give up, non-vegetarian food. And I think this is one of the best decisions I took. It really improved my health. It did so much good to me, but I don't impose it on anyone, even my family members. I don't say anything at all. So to each his own. So Sri Krishna is saying, Ayu Sattva Balarogyam Sukha Priti Vivardhanaha Rasya Snigdha Ahara Satvika Priyaha. If you eat sattvic food, these are the consequences. And I think we can really experience that when you consume a very well-cooked khichdi and that kind of food, rice, sambar, the effect that it culminates in is definitely so much superior than consuming 4 samosas and jalebis, right? So definitely there is truth in what Krishna is saying, but I fully agree with your point. Just because somebody is vegetarian doesn't mean he is not a bhakta or is not close to Sri Krishna. Otherwise, why will Krishna say in 9:30, Api Chetsu Duracharo Bhaste Mam Ananya Bhak? You may be the greatest sinner, but you can become the greatest dharmatma in no time. That is why spiritual science is not so straightforward. I would like to avoid extremism and brand this way or that way. I would say pick up the best from each shloka and also look at the exceptions. I hope it gives some
and also,
food for the thought.
and I would like to support. Say a few things. One is that like Chitra said, Hitler was supposed to be a vegetarian. Okay, so Hitler was a vegetarian, and Swami Vivekananda has said that by feeding a, I think, can you unmute yourself, Chitra? By feeding a monkey vegetarian food, he doesn't become a saint. So Swami Vivekananda said. So these are all things in favor of what he said. But we must know that the ideas of good and bad are not exactly same as in Bhagavad Gita. Is quite different from speaking nicely or taking care of the elderly or things like that. Because Arjuna here, Krishna is clearly asking Arjuna to kill. Okay, so this we must understand very, very clearly. Krishna is not asking Arjuna to take care of the elderly. He's not asking Arjuna to be nice. He's asking Arjuna to kill the people. So it's very important to know. And Bhagavad Gita gives actually, I think Rajshekhar said also very clearly that we must really transcend the gunas. So this guna, the good can be what is called as the sattva. Speaking nicely and doing this and that and doing charity and so-called conventional good. Conventional good. But here Bhagavad Gita's greatness is that it actually transcends the so-called conventional good and actually go into the Trigunadita state. That is the whole idea of Bhagavad Gita itself. And that's what actually makes Bhagavad Gita a great text, according to me. I don't know. And this is, just spoke my words.
No, that is 100% true, Sri Krishna ji. That's what I have also conveyed in almost every, time you gave me an opportunity to say that at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is saying, Sarva Dharman Parityajya. He is asking us to discard all the dharma. So what is the meaning? He is telling us to discard all the dharma. And he is telling, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. So he is preaching the Bhagavad Dharma, the Paradharma, the dharma of surrendering to the Lord and not getting stuck in the ritualistic dharma. So every other dharma is secondary to the dharma of rendering devotional service. So if we are becoming surrendered to God, that is the highest dharma. Everything else is secondary, whether you consume X type of food or Y type of food, whether you do the karm kand or not. That is my understanding. And I really think that works for me.
Surji, want to say anything on this? Rajesh Rai?
Actually, it's the level of discourse is higher than what I'm capable of, but I will just share a little bit about food because it's a subject of interest to me over the last few years. I myself actually was not born in a vegetarian home. We started out non-veg, but my mom says that I never liked non-veg, and at about 11 I came home and I became vegetarian one day, and over time my family became vegetarian. Now, did it make me healthier, a better person? I'm not sure, because I'm not sure that vegetarian food by definition, therefore it is better. I'm not certain of that. I'm much more directed towards, see, a lot of Bhagavad Gita, when we look at change, we think of it in terms of agency and structure. Agency being the person and structure being what is around us. And a lot of the Bhagavad Gita's teachings are pointed towards the agent, what you should do, can do. But structurally, we have changed so much. What we deem as vegetarian is not necessarily healthy. Let us take, for example, milk. We view this as very pure food in generally in Hindu households. But the milk that we are drinking is mostly weeks, months old. The one that you're going to get from a refrigerator, from your NTUC, is going to be weeks old. Even if it's called fresh milk. And today we're finding out that milk is in fact leading to circumstances in which people are increasingly allergic to it. And then there are other fallouts as well. So what is deemed as vegetarian in itself is not sufficient, because structurally we are in conditions where vegetarian food is not necessarily healthy anymore. Because for me, in fact, most of these items are what I would consider stale. I would consider putrid, right? I'm giving my interpretation to this. And this is something that worries me a lot, because I don't think we know enough about it. Increasingly, gastroenterologists are, previously they used to study the mechanism of the colon and the intestines. Now they are taking much more attention into food and understanding how it affects us on a daily basis, how it reshapes, influences our DNA and DNA changes over time. And I think this is something that we need to be aware of. So for me, the Bhagavad Gita provides a general guide. We must use that general guide in the context of far different structural circumstances that we have today. So that's all I really have to say on this subject.
Beautiful, exactly, very correct. Sunidhi, yeah, okay,
Krishna is calling me to give.
Ajay saying something.
Krishna is calling me.
No, now after Ajay, he was just going to say something.
No, my 5 cents of experiential with this thing. It's actually food. Once it is offered to Lord, without offering to Lord, as per tradition, one's not supposed to consume. That is the basic thing. And there was another thing which was talked is in Bhakti Grantha Bhagavata, it says, Ahastani Sahastani, Dvipatani Chadushpadam, Bhalguni Mahadam, Jivaha Jivasya Jivanam. Means here, actually, one who doesn't have hands being eaten by those who have hands. And those who doesn't have legs being eaten by those who have legs. And weak is being used by those who are at strength. So one life is life for the other. This is Bhagavata says, not my saying. So that is actually the cycle of the creation in reality. In this discrimination seeking and trying to realize the divinity within, because Krishna, who is Pundarikastha, who is seated in the heart lotus, as we do prayers, we cook food then and there and offer to the Lord and consume. So we were saying sattvic food is like that, which is fresh, offered to the Lord and then consume it. Actually, all the blemishes, if there are any kind of this thing, will be get purified. That is my take. Even plucking the tulasi plant, leaves, is also killing the plant. It is also like a degree of feeling transcends here. If it comes to a hen or goat or what you call any kind of such animals being slaughtered, same feeling will be there. So it is actually those who are finding oneself the divinity within, they have to themselves transform and understand the principle and abide on it, which is much actually discussed in Shastras. That is what I would like to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Rachikrithi, you were saying something, right? Sorry.
No, I just wanted to, I mean, we all know as a fact that whatever food we consume, it converts into certain chemicals, and it has got certain impact on the body, various parts of the body, the mind, and how we behave and so on. So that is undeniable. And also our concept in Hinduism is that the body is a temple, and this is our tool to do the right karma, to move forth. So if it is diseased, then we are not able to use it the way we want. So how do you keep up the body, the temple of God, healthy? So this is where the different kinds of food comes into being. Once again, I keep saying one thing, that is, I think our body knows what it needs and what it doesn't. And even the preferences that changes, like what Prof. Rajesh said. One fine day, his mother told him he does not prefer non-veg food, but there's certain tendencies that actually emerge from you, and then you follow that. And that too is that voice I talked about earlier, telling you what you should and what you should not. Even most of us in the current world, we eat more than what we require. We eat, the hunger is gone, but then we don't stop. We are not hungry, but we continue to eat. So this is why the body gets into disrepair, and then things don't work the same way. And then, a quarter of a life or 1/3 of our life is actually about medicine, about doctors, and about hospitals. So when it comes to kind of food, I still think that what is described as sattvic food, which is a lot more vegetarian and good and fresh and pure and all that, is something that will impact you positively and less so negatively. But unfortunately, like what Prof. Rajesh said, we are in a world where, especially in the city folks, we are dependent on what comes to us much later. But within the context of what is available, we can still continue to be consuming something that is better than not so good. And many people take that effort. They say, okay, let me go to the markets where the fresh produce is coming from Malaysia or somewhere else, and then I buy that, I cook that, and I don't want to buy powders that are made. I'll buy the turmeric, and I'll go and grind it myself. Those things they try to do. I mean, that's the best we could do now. Thanks.
Yeah, true. I mean, we are living in a world which is we have to live in the current world which is around us. We can't live in a village. You have to unmute, Professor. You have to unmute.
No, I cannot agree with you more, Raja. I think, yes, we are very limited in our circumstances, and but we do what we can. And I think the Bhagavad Gita for me is a general guide. But that being said, I'm only seeking to also, we have to alert people that what they are having may contain things which they will be shocked about. I once had a conversation with you, so the children, my children brought Cheetos back. Cheetos is a crisp chips. And then I find out, Cheetos, the coloring is made from beetles that are boiled. They get the red coloring for the chips. Okay. This is everyday stuff that we are eating, which we take as vegetarian. I'm not so sure, the meanings of what. So I think we need to also educate ourselves in recognizing what is inside those packets.
True. Actually, I've also seen some milk powder, with fish inside.
Most of the baby milk filler, in fact, have fish. There is only 1 or 2 brands, and which most of we all don't buy, that actually don't contain fish. But then the fish may have omega, may have certain positive elements. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that it does contain fish.
Correct.
Yeah.
So even the silver line, the silver coating of the sweets that we Indians have, the Indian sweets, they're supposed to be something from animals, right? Animal fat.
That's right. I've read about this. I don't know enough.
Yeah, even the gummy sweets and all that supposed to contain all this. But if you're vegetarian, at least we are saving the animals. But that one good thing we are doing this. That's what I feel.
Actually, what Rajesh ji said about milk is so true. And I always knew that pasteurized milk and milk which is not fresh is no good. And I stopped consuming milk long back because you don't get fresh milk. But one Ayurveda shop in Little India, that guy shocked me by saying, Rajesh, if you are consuming milk which is not fresh, it is poison. And if you are consuming fresh, it is amrit. So that is the difference, So milk per se is amrit, and that must be the case, but we don't get fresh milk, and what we are consuming, according to him, is poison.
But Rajesh, I have one comment because it is Yadayamam, all these things actually are written in the times in which there was no UHD technology, there was no technology of fridges, there is no technology of refrigeration. All these were not there. So whether those things are applicable today is highly dubious. It is not completely. We cannot say with certainty. So it has to be examined in its completeness.
We had different types of fridges those days, There were a lot of conventional methods to freeze and use preservatives, etc. So why don't we go by, the words of Shri Krishna? The popular belief is every word in the Shastra is eternal truth. And of course, the interpretation we need to know from our Guru. So about food that we are talking, I think I did a lot of research on this subject. I also founded Formula 44, which I popularized. So I would definitely want to implement what Shri Krishna talks about sattvic food. Ayu sattva balarogya sukh priti vivardhana rasya snigdha hridya ahara sattvika priya. The food which is juicy, which is succulent, which is fresh, which is organic. I feel when I consume that food, that's my best day. And when I gorge on samosas and jalebi, it may taste good for a while, but it doesn't leave me with the best consequences.
Yeah. Good. Ultimately, we are all responsible to ourselves. Yeah, I think one of the things the Jane Goodall, I've heard her saying the best decision that we have to do is we have to be aware of the consequences of what we do. So and what we buy, what we eat. Once we know that, at least try to know the consequences. In which case, we can take better decisions on things. Is there any other question by anybody? Otherwise, I think it's already 1:15. We can stop for today. So I think there are no other questions, I think. So let us call it a day for today. So we thank our guest of honor for today is Rajesh Rai ji. So thank you so much and for staying back full time also, and for those your beautiful words and also insights, and also to our speaker for today, Rajshekhar ji. So thank you so much, Rajshekhar ji, and also to all our wonderful chanters who chanted so beautifully, and all the participants, and we offer everything as our offering to Lord Krishna's lotus feet. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
Thank you.